Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. This is Jeff with Fluent American, and today we're going to be looking at a task one letter. This is for the general test. Okay, so again, for the general test, you have to write a letter to a friend or a company or things like that. In this case, you can see the document on the right. We're going to be writing to a friend. So, something that is important to consider for this is that we'll need an informal letter. Tone is extremely important. And I've seen a lot of candidates that actually struggle more with the informal letters than the formal letters because the language is a little bit different and the tone is a little different. So it's very easy to use an inappropriate or more formal tone, and that can really lower your score for your task achievement. That can put you at a 5 or lower. Okay, so this time we're going to be writing a letter to a friend. Before we do that, again, you can see the document on the right-hand side. That'll take you to our actual letter. You can also see it in the video description. There's a link that you can follow there as well. But if you still have trouble finding it, just send me a message. Also, quick reminders to make sure you subscribe to the channel. So we do regular um, regular sessions like this. So I definitely encourage you to take advantage of that. Also, join our Facebook groups. We have a writing group for IELTS where we post regular prompts and exercises. So that way you can get your own writing checked. Okay. I'm also seeing I'm having trouble connecting to the chat. So if I'm a little slow responding, sorry, I will do my best as soon as I see the message. All right, let's take a look at our actual prompt. Now, I found it, but I haven't looked at it much because I want this to be kind of an authentic experience for like a test taker, what you would see. Okay. So we have a friend who's coming to work in our country for 6 months. We have to write a letter to them giving a suggestion of a city to live in, recommendation on jobs, and advice on places where they can meet people. Okay. Write at least 150 words, standard for these situations. My advice for task one for these letters is try to write at least 2 to 3 sentences for each bullet point. Okay. So, again, you want to write 2 to 3 sentences for each of these points: the suggestion, the recommendations, and the advice. Um, if you don't write that much, you risk lowering your task achievement score. Okay, you don't have enough time to elaborate. So that's why I really suggest at least 2 to 3, if not more. My other suggestion for task one letters: try to make this as realistic as possible. You want to try to really input as much realistic vocab as you can. This will help improve your vocabulary score. If you say things that are too general, you're not going to push your vocab enough. So that's going to keep you somewhere around that 5 to 6 vocabulary range. So those are two things we'll be really paying attention to. All right. So we had to write our letter. My suggestion to get started is to just kind of show your connection to the person that you're writing to. So, for instance, if you're writing a letter to a friend, we want to start off in a way that shows we have a relationship with this person that already exists. So, for instance, dear James, we want to again show that we've been friends for a while. So maybe like it was so great to hear from you last week. Sorry I cut our call short, but I'm excited to know you will be coming. And I'm sorry I cut our call short, but I'm excited to know that you will be coming soon. Okay. And honestly, you could probably start with that. I'm sorry I cut our call short earlier this week. I'm excited to know you'll be coming so soon. Now, we need to decide on a city. My suggestion is choose a city that you know very well. If the city you know best is your hometown, pick your hometown. If your city is a place that you travel to for work, or maybe it's one of your favorite vacation spots, something like that, use that. Don't pick a place that you don't know anything about. Pick a city that you're very familiar with. I'm originally from Philadelphia in the US. That's what I'm going to be using. Okay. So I know you'll be coming soon. Philly. Philly is a nickname for Philadelphia in the United States. So if your city has a nickname, feel free to use the nickname. So like Philly is such a great place for Philly is such a great place for people like you who want a bit of history, but also an active nightlife. Okay. So again, we're talking about a city. And so Philly is such a great place for people like you who want a bit of history, but also an active nightlife. Okay. And then we need to tell a little bit more about the suggestion of the city you live in. So for instance, there are also a couple of events coming up here that I know you'll love. Okay. So now we'll give a couple of events. Philadelphia has great fireworks for the 4th of July. Yeah. You can say it makes sense, right? Since she was born here, a lot of ways. Also, um, some beer gardens are opening up. Um, like some beer gardens will be open by then, around especially around Penn's Landing. Okay. So again, I'm pulling from some real events. So I'm mentioning the fireworks. Philadelphia has fireworks on the 4th of July, and then also beer gardens. Again, this is actually another thing that happens in the city. So pull from some things that um, are actually occurring in your city, occur where you live, because that's going to help your vocab score again. Okay. You don't just want to say, oh, it's great. They have festivals. That's much too general. Try to be more specific as you can. Okay. So, especially around Penn's Landing and the piers. Um, Next, we need to mention a little bit about jobs. Okay, so let's get onto the job description a little bit. So, recommendations on jobs your friend could do. Um, as a barista and bartender, so let's make our friend an expert in serving drinks, coffee, alcohol, things like that. As a barista and bartender, this will be the perfect time of year for you. The perfect time of year for you. Also find job South Street. This is location again in the actual city. So as I suggested before, you want to try to pull from real aspects of the city you're describing. Okay. So these are some neighborhoods and areas in Philadelphia. So South Street, Old City, South Street and Old City. Tons of little spots. So South Street and Old City have tons of little spots that are hiring. By the time you get closer to maybe like your departure, Students will also have returned to University City. Okay, so again, another neighborhood. Why am I mentioning this? Because again, your friend's here for 6 months. So you want to make sure they have a place where they can work for those 6 months. Okay. By the time you get closer to your departure, students will also have returned to University City. So, so there should be openings in the service industry there too. Okay. So again, this paragraph is talking about recommendations for jobs. Okay. Again, we made our friend a bartender, a barista, so they're serving people. And we want to make sure that our friend knows that there are lots of opportunities for them to find work. Okay. So that's why I'm mentioning those things. Again, I'm pointing out some specific places and also using some logic to justify it, being like, hey, they'll probably need they'll probably need bartenders, baristas at University City once this friend is about to leave because students are coming back. And so all the bars and things will be pretty active. Okay. And there should be openings in the service industry there too. Okay. And our last part, advice on places where your friends can meet locals. Also want to just do a quick word count check. Okay. So right now I'm about 158 words. My guess is that this whole letter will probably get to around 200. 200 is kind of a lot of words for task one, but it's not unreasonable. I think aiming to get 200 words for your task one, 300 words for a task two, um, especially if you're a faster writer, I think those would be reasonable goals. Also, being a native speaker, I'll naturally be just a little bit faster at this in most situations. Okay. So write what you need to write for your own speed. If you find that 150 words is difficult to write, though, in about 20 minutes, then this definitely something you'll probably want to improve because you'll probably be a little bit close on time, and that could be an issue. Okay. So, just a couple sentences again on advice on places where your friends can meet locals. So, like if meeting people, or so if our friend's a bartender or barista, they're always dealing with people. It's like I'm sure you'll get to meet lots of people with your line of work. So I'm sure you'll get to meet lots of people with your line of work, but or maybe let's do a reference. So maybe during our call, our friend said something that they were nervous about meeting people or they thought it would be hard. It's like you mentioned that you weren't sure how you'd or like you weren't sure how easy it would be to make friends. I'm sure you'll get to meet lots of people with your line of work, but there will be other chances too. Um, I know so we want to give some opportunities. And again, try to pull from where you actually live. If there are some opportunities in your city that you know about, this is a great chance to mention them and describe them. So, for instance, I know in Philadelphia, there's a couple opportunities for poetry. Okay, so I'm going to mention that. So, I know you like poetry. There are a couple of open mic. Open mic is a place where basically a person can read their poetry. Or also, if they do music, they can perform music depending on the show. So I'm going to mention that. I know you like poetry. There are a couple of open mics, including one at Tattooed Moms. Tattooed Moms is the name of a bar in Philadelphia called I guess it's Fire. I might be misspelling it. Um, if they spell tire with a Y or an I for this show, but I'm gonna guess it's a Y. Okay. There's a including one of tattooed moms called the Tire Fire on Tuesdays. It's worth checking out. If you go for um, if you go for a couple of weeks, you're bound to make some contacts. Open mics, including one at Tattoo Moms called Tire Fire on Tuesdays. That's worth checking out. If you go for a couple weeks, you're bound to make some contacts. Okay. Okay. We need to also make sure that um, advice on places. Are we given that? So we want to make sure if it says places that we're giving it more than one. So right now we really kind of have one with tattooed moms. So let's make the workplaces a little bit more evident. Okay. Um, most of the bars show you pretty busy on weekends. After all, there will be other chances too, though. Yeah, I know you like poetry. There are a couple of open mics, and we want a tattooed mom, some tire fire. Great. So now we have two places. Okay. So we're talking about you can meet locals at the bar, and then also at the open mic events. Okay. All right. If you think of anything, like if you think of any other questions, text me. Otherwise, see you soon. Okay. Take care, and then. All right, so this is my task one letter. I just want to check my final word count on our paragraphs for this. It's probably going to be a little bit high. It's 262. Okay, so I went a little bit long on that part about locations. But that's fine. A key thing for IELTS, if you're able to write more, write more. You're not punished for going over. You're only punished if you go under. Okay, and naturally, for me, this will be slightly easier than for a lot of students. But I think the key takeaways from this, again, just to summarize a bit, for each bullet point, make sure that you give 2 to 3 sentences at least. Okay. Also, make sure to try to use as specific vocabulary as possible. Okay. For instance, if they say jobs, name some specific types of jobs. I named bartenders and baristas. If they name places to go, name some specific places. I named some neighborhoods in my city. I also named some specific locations, like specific bars, for instance, like tattooed moms. Places where friends can meet locals. I named some specific events. Okay. Um, I mentioned the beer gardens. I mentioned the fireworks on the 4th of July. I mentioned the open mics. I mentioned the name of the open mics, Tattooed Moms. Tire Fire. Okay. These are all things that if you're trying to get anything above a 6, these things are necessary. Okay. If you're trying to get above a 6, you have to do these types of things. Um, Also, of course, idioms, collocations, phrasal verbs, those things are all part of your score as well. You want to try to use those. Grammar, you want to try to show a range. You'll notice, for instance, in my last couple sentences towards the bottom, there's a couple of conditionals. Um, I have compound sentences, like my very first sentence. I'm sorry I cut our call short, but I'm excited to know. Okay, so you have a compound sentence there. Um, there's also clauses. So, for instance, also a couple of events coming up that I know you'll love. So I have an adjective clause there that I know you'll love. Um, Also, some simple sentences. Not every sentence needs to be complex. Philadelphia has great fireworks for the 4th of July. That is a simple sentence, subject, verb, object. And that is okay. There's nothing wrong with simple sentences. Not every sentence can be simple, but it's okay to throw them in there every now and then. Okay. Regardless, this would be my example of a task one letter. If you have questions or comments about it, be sure to leave them after I publish this video. I'm sorry that our chat box wasn't working. I apologize for that. But last reminders, make sure to subscribe to the channel. So if you like what you see, if you want to get more IELTS information, writing information, or also pronunciation, which is our second main focus on this channel. Also, make sure to join our Facebook group, which I'll leave a link to. You can see it in the video description. Okay, and that's for IELTS writing. My name's Jeff. Thank you guys for your time. I hope you guys have a good day, have a good night, and a good afternoon. Take care.